traffic sucks.
Because at least it's really scenic.
Beautiful morning. Where are we heading?
We're about to go hang out with a legend. I put this guy up with the Palettas, the Sanjays, folks that are around about 4 decades ago. How many books did Julian?
I think he wrote like 3 or 4 movement tanks in one of his books.
No way, really? You know, like a really sad fact, there's only 2% of the reefs are still alive here in Florida in general. We want to just gather more information so we could pass this education back off to our fans here at Polo Reef and the folks who follow us.
So we are here and we are with the man, the legend, in the flesh, Mr. Julian Sprung.
Julian Sprung. Tell us about Two Little Fishies, how we got started. Tell us about just back in the day.
Born and raised in Miami Beach. One of my older brothers, whose name is Elliot, he set up aquariums in a house, in a neighbor's house. When I was 4 years old, my brother Elliot took me to see his aquariums. Some people, it's a fish tank, you know, and some people were like, oh my God, look at this. You know, I mean, he told me that he collected the stuff. I want to go with you, let's go collecting. And if he would say, you know, I'm going to go with a friend and go collecting, I just, on the floor, tantrum crying. I mean, it was just like, I was hooked by 1973. By 1982, so I was 15, I was hired at a local aquarium shop that was on Biscayne Boulevard. I was a customer of that store. There was somebody asking questions, and this 15-year-old is giving him the advice, and the owner is listening to me. He says, kid, you want a job? I want to set up a big mini reef in this store. Will you help me? This was my first experience with a sump, wet dry, overflow, the trickle filter, the whole thing, and we set that up. But we were able to get bubble coral, leather corals. I collected a lot of the local Polythoa and Zoanthus.
What were you guys using for lighting back then?
Fluorescent tubes. Yep. What we used were power twist. They made a kind of a daylight bulb that had a twist in the glass. That was, 81, 82. I had my own aquariums at home, of course. And I had experienced head and lateral line disease with a hepatis tang. And it was kind of a mystery. It was in the books that this happens. What I did, I took that hepatis tang, put it in a bait bucket, floated it off the dock on Palm Island. Within a matter of about a month, you could see that the wounds were healing. So I wrote about it for the hobby newsletter, and that got picked up by Freshwater and Marine Aquarium magazine. I had no idea. They didn't ask.
You were how old?
I was 15. They put me in touch with John Burleson. We chatted. I told him that, look, I'm graduating next year. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I need a staff biologist. When you graduate, you got a job. He and some other shops put on a little conference, and they invited me to come speak. And that's where I met Merle Cohen. Because I met Merle, he was impressed with what I spoke about at the show. He talked to a buddy of his who was the editor for Freshwater Marine Aquarium magazine. And that's how I became the Reef Notes editor. Likewise, at the same time, when I first visited John Burleson and saw his 125-gallon tank, it was all done with live rock. It had a lot of interest. He had some Dictyota, he had some Sargassum, some Laurentia, things that I was not maintaining in my aquariums. I worked for Burleson for a couple of years. At some point, I had written a couple of columns in the magazine where I had more than suggested that trickle filters, wet-dry filters were unnecessary. The staff biologist for a company that made money making trickle filters. And here I was writing that you don't need them. So I told the truth. That didn't really go over well. Anyway, I got myself fired from Burleson. It wasn't just that, but I think that was, the writing was on the wall. And that, left me on my own, and I had to decide at that point, am I going back to academia? Shall I get my master's degree? And my major professor said, well, do you want to become a professor like me? Maybe. I want to teach. I don't know. I enjoy it. If I were you, if you could get something doing like what you were doing, that would be a good thing. I actually talked to him about all the things that are happening now, fragging corals, doing reef restoration. And he kind of just smiled and said, you know, if half of this stuff comes true, you know, it'd be really great. Yeah. So I came back to Miami. Daniel Ramirez, who was a hobbyist, he approached Jeff and said, hey, I want to do a video. That was how Two Little Fishies got together. Yep. First product for Two Little Fishies was a video, really? Teaching people how to set up a reef aquarium. And then after that, we started selling books, Peter Wilkins' book. We started selling kalkwasser and hydrocarbon, and it just grew from there. Can you imagine that, you know, there was no order online. People had to call, you had to hire operators, and the company grew from there.
The rest is history.
Yeah, that's it.
Where we are today.
We're talking a little bit about the reef restoration and the importance of the urchins.
I mean, there's corals now, but they're not doing well, and the main reason why they're not doing well is that the algae is not very well controlled. The algae prevents successful settlement. You have this ecosystem-based problem that you need that herbivore, the Diadema sea urchin, and it prepares the substrate.
Why do we lose population of the Diadema?
Back in 1983, there was a plague that started around Panama, hit them, and they just got wiped out.
Talking about having coral tissue loss disease.
Yes.
And the concern of it making it to the Pacific.
It may have come from the Pacific. Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities.
What can the hobbyist or even the general public doesn't have a tank do to help in this effort?
I think that joining aquarium clubs is one thing. So a hobbyist can be involved in that, and that's one of the things that a hobbyist can do, where anybody comes to visit you in your house, encourage them to really spend some time looking, show them the details. So that gives that, you know, firsthand experience and an appreciation and how you develop love for nature.
We want to thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you, Julian. Appreciate it.
We didn't show this on the video, but JC and I were like little kids around before we started.